Hello, YouTube. Jason from Renegade Rant Comics. And today's video I have been putting off for a while because I really don't know what I want to say. And for me not to know what to say, it takes a lot. And I want to talk about The Punisher. Now, when I first started reading comics back in my younger years, most of the comics I had laying around were my uncle's old Superman, Superboys, Lois Lanes, mostly DC, and the Batmans that were in them. It was good guy. It wasn't the Dark Knight. It was good guy versus bad guy. That's all it was. There's no gray area. You were either good or you were bad. And as I got older, one of my friends was big into the Punisher, and the Punisher I never really was into. But I remember in school, my friend Dave would bring in his Punisher armory or a few new issues of the Punisher or whatever. I'd be like, hey, can I borrow that in the study hall to read it? And I'd start reading it, and didn't dislike the character. He just wasn't my cup of tea. And then the Nintendo video game came out. And we're talking original NES. And it was just a first-person shooter, shoot 'em up, where it was basically targets popping up and you were castle with whatever guns you could get. And that kind of sold me. I started, getting a little more into them. And then, I don't know how we watched it, but the movie that was never released with Dolph Lundgren, I think we watched it on Dave's satellite. And then that sold the character for me. Frank Castle. He goes through this catastrophic event that causes him to want vengeance. And that's what it was back in the late 80s and early 90s. I mean, the 80s and the 90s, every movie that came out that was an action movie was somebody had been done wrong and they were going to make it right. That's what it was. Rambo. Any of the different ones. Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, which is one of my, cult hero classic kind of things. All the movies were basically, there was a good guy, but he may not have been the best guy. So, when Jerry Conway created Punisher, Punisher was literally supposed to be a one-off villain. He was there to assassinate Spider-Man. And then, even after the issue, when Punisher realizes he had been manipulated, at the end of the issue, he no longer wants to kill Spider-Man. Now he wants to, with his own moral code, kind of take out the person that had manipulated him. And that set up that Frank had a moral code. Now let's flash forward to today's day and age. Punisher is a character that can't exist. The symbol has been used by different groups that the original creator did not want and wanted somebody to take him back. So then we have this. The Jason Aaron run. Now, I enjoy Jason Aaron on some titles not so much. But he wrote one of my favorite Ghost Rider storylines. To this day, it's in the top 5 storylines I've ever read about Ghost Rider. I enjoyed that series. So, him stepping in, I knew there was going to be some tweaks, but the first thing he does is sets up the story of where the symbol's going to go away. Okay? So issue 1, basically just the setup of what's going on. Frank's working with the hand. And why is he working with the hand? And they set it up so that now he's not going to have his symbol anymore. He's working with the hand. He's got a new symbol. And he's working with the hand because somehow the hand high priestess was able to resurrect his wife. But can't resurrect the kids, but his wife is no longer dead. She's still got the bullet holes in her face and all over her body, but basically she doesn't really remember what happened, and she waits for him at the hand's base of operations to come back. Okay? Okay, let's see where this is going. Then we go to issue 3. And instead of just letting Frank be what Frank was, we've decided that even as a child, he was a sociopath. I would say psychopath, sociopath, whatever you want to go with, because at 10 years old, he sees a catastrophic event where a guy was beating his wife, and basically justice was not done. So Frank, who had been researching stuff in school, on how to build bombs and make napalm and stuff, makes napalm and sets his neighbor on fire to kill him at 9 or 10 years old. So we've set him up so he's a murderer as a child. Why? What is the point of that? To prove that he's a psychopath? To prove that he's a sociopath? Well, something snapped in him after his wife and his kids died, and any of the other arcs that you read, he wasn't exactly all together. But you've got to ruin him? I mean, he was a Marine. Okay? So then we go to issue 4. And there's our wonderful news symbol. Okay, it's the hand symbol, kind of modified into the Punisher symbol, and we knew that they were going to try to get rid of the Punisher symbol. It was just going to happen because the powers that be did not like what was going on with the symbol and how it was being used, so we're going to take him. Okay? Then we go to issue 5. Okay? In issue 5, when Maria tries to escape, or they try to leave the compound, she won't live past the compound stores. So even if he's having some kind of moral ambiguity about staying there, and she starts remembering more and more of their life together, and then they go into a storyline where Ares, the god of war, comes after him. Then we go with issue 7, where Daredevil comes after him, saying, I know what it's like to be taken over and you need help. Then we have issue 8. Continuing on the big fight in issue 9, where he's taking out everything. And then we have issue 10, where basically, if you look, it's him and Maria dancing, and now Frank has become the Beast. He's the whatever beast the Hand worships has been seeking him out because he was a sociopath as a child. But in the meantime, Maria's starting to question why her children aren't around, and when the Hand does try to resurrect the children, their bodies were too decayed, which doesn't make any sense because they died at all the same timeline, but it's all over the place. But now that Maria's witnessing all of this, Maria wants to be part of whatever he's doing, but she can't leave the compound, and he takes on the High Priestess during this ensemble where he wants to be able to just be done with everything, be done with the Hand, just go with his wife. But his wife is now remembering where he was working on this van, and he was never going to finish this van because he would finish the van and then tear it down, because even when he got home from the war, he literally was out doing things all over the place and didn't have any time for her or the kids, and the kids were scared of him because he was aloof, and he had PTSD and any of the other things, and he was paying somebody at the local prison that when they were doing executions so he could sit through and watch the executions and that kind of thing. So again, proving that he's some kind of serial killer that isn't serial killing, and he's terrorizing his family. Why? Why was this needed to be put into his lore? Why was this the storyline that we wanted to put in there? So then we go in with issue 11. Okay? Captain America, all the other heroes are trying to take Frank out. And eventually Maria makes whoever was running the library or the media room or whatever at the Hand Central, makes them show her what the Punisher is. And then she can't take it, so literally there were some magic bullets in one of Frank's old guns, and she shoots him in the chest, and he's dying. And at the very end, we have issue 12. So Frank's chained up. He's dying. Basically, Maria comes to him and says, you did this under your own. You were never there. Oh, by the way, the day at the park, I was going to divorce you. And that was what threw me off. There was no reason to take the storyline that everybody had learned, grown up with. His wife and his children were killed. Now you're having it, oh, he had already lost his wife and his children because she was going to divorce him. And, you know, his kids were terrified of him. So you're basically making a veteran who fought in a war, came back a little messed up, that was going to therapy when she asked him to go to therapy and was doing that. Yes, he had issues, but you created a character now that is basically unredeemable. Why? You could have wrote him off in so many ways. So in the last issue, she basically wants nothing to do with him, and when he wakes up, the beast or the demon that was in him is somehow gone, or he's able to get rid of him, and Doctor Strange has him tied up with magical chains, but was able to get the magic bullets out and comes in and says, hey, buddy, you're lucky that I was a skilled surgeon or you wouldn't be breathing right now, but we don't know what to do with you. And by the way, you're in the, bowels of the Sanctum Sanctorum, so I've gotten lost down here before, so don't even try to make a run for it or anything. And then all of a sudden, all the heroes come down to tell Frank what a worthless pile of crap he is. And Wolverine comes down. My guy, Wolverine, comes down and literally lectures Frank on killing. And then Frank only has the... I will say that Frank had a good comeback going, well, after you kill me, you should probably think about all the killing you've done and, take yourself out. So apparently that really upset Logan, and then basically everybody's coming down, and then Maria comes down. And I found out through your contacts, all your safe houses and all your money, and I took half of what was mine anyway, and I guess I don't have to worry about being divorced because I was dead, so it's a wash, doesn't really matter, and I don't care what they do with you, but I took half the money and gave it to orphans and children in need, and the other half I'm keeping for myself and bought a new car. Bye-bye. Okay. So then Captain America comes down, and before everybody came down to see Frank prayed to the Beast one last time. That he, and the Beast was like, oh, you want me back? You're going to show all these guys. And basically Frank just wanted the ability to go somewhere. So he basically banishes himself to this other realm where nobody gets to actually punish him because there's no punishing for him. Although when Captain America comes down to basically say, hey, we're not even sure what we're supposed to be doing with you, basically, but you're going to pay for your crimes, Frank says, I will pay, and then bursts into flame in front of Cap. And then he puts himself on this other dimension or multiverse or whatever it is, and literally finds orphans and children in need and takes them to safety. And when the children look up at him, and he's still got his hand symbol, because again, the skull was just too much. But when he's got his hand symbol on, basically, the children are like, what do we call you? And he goes, you can call me Frank. So, there's the Jason Aaron run that every month I was waiting. And the first few issues, I was kind of wanting to see where he was going with the story. But I don't understand why you would do that. What was necessary? Why? To take the character. The character is outdated. The character cannot live in today's society. Fine. But the character was so popular at one point that the character was running at least 3 books, and I think there was 4, plus the miniseries, plus the back-to-school specials, plus all the other stuff, because they had the Armory. They had Warzone. They had War Journal. They had the Punisher series. Or the Punisher, main series. So there's 4 titles right in a row for the Punisher. And yeah, he waned off. Because there was a lot of Punisher out there, but they were selling a lot of books. Or he wouldn't have had 4 different versions. And guys my age, they don't want to see Frank all messed up and stuff like that. Unless you're talking Garth Ennis. And when Garth Ennis came in and wrote the Max series, Garth made him kind of nuttier than he was, but that was all in war. But at the very end of Ennis's run, with the Vietnam series or whatever, he basically had Frank had taken out all of the Viet Cong. He was the last one left at the fire base, and he was messed up. And he got injured, and he was going back home. And when Maria said to him, and at the very end, he had basically made a deal with the devil or the beast or whatever you want to call it. And maybe that's where Jason Aaron was calling off of this. I don't know. But I'm going to say this. If this character was so freaking irredeemable, why try to make another series with him? So that's where I'm going to jump into my next little mini rant on the Punisher. Now, Jason Aaron's going to be at Terrificon. Okay? I'm probably going to have some of these signed. At least the number 1. I mostly want him to sign some of my Ghost Rider. But it's one of those... The series put such a bad taste in my mouth, I don't even know if I want to take these books and have them signed. But I own them. He's there. He wrote them. Maybe in 5 years I'll reread them and think back, wow. Or maybe I'll get something more out of the story. So then, we're going to jump to after they've done that to Frank, they decided we have to have a Punisher. Because, they didn't like the Punisher they had. They did everything they could to have somebody write the Punisher out because the Punisher can't exist in today's modern society. So then we get this. Oh, it's the Punisher. Well, no, it's a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and that's supposed to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. uniform that apparently glows in the dark in the right spot, so people think it's the chest. And then they tried giving him a very similar story, where his wife was killed. And he's working with a handler that used to work with him at S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's going to find out who did this. And oh, the Punisher's back. But notice, in the next issues, he's using S.H.I.E.L.D. guns. They're not real guns. They're the S.H.I.E.L.D. guns. But it looks like that one character's got real guns coming fire out of him, but we've got weird, whatever, plasma things. So, this lasted 4 issues. And I have all 4 of them. At one point, he's taking on a vampire. Because, why not? And the last one, I actually kind of liked where they were going with this because it wasn't our Jigsaw from the normal Punisher run. It was actually a group called the Jigsaws that apparently were worshiping him. But then I'm like, are you really just stealing the Jokers from Frank Miller? So here's my rant about the 2 series. If you don't like the character, then don't write the character. Why do you want to diminish the legacy of a character that supported a lot of divisions in the company when other books weren't doing as well and kept those alive? Like, that's the legacy. Okay? You don't like the character, you don't like the symbol. Well, if you don't like the symbol, why are you selling the patches? Why are you selling the buttons? Like, it's hypocrisy to no levels. Like, you don't want the symbol being used or corrupted or whatever, then stop selling the symbol. But you're not going to stop the sale of the symbol because the symbol's out there and you're making money off of it. But you're going to do everything you can to make that symbol not mean what it meant. And even nobody knows what it meant. It meant vengeance, it meant justice to some people, and then when our soldiers used it overseas, and that was their symbol of hope or a symbol for their unit or whatever, and then the powers that be at Marvel decided to lose their mind. Why? If it got those guys home that were over there protecting our rights, protecting our freedoms, what difference does it make? Now, I am not trying to stir up the community. I am not trying to stir up a bunch of things. I've had people that I've watched on their shows review these comics, and they like them. They like the way that the storyline went. And some people that have absolutely ripped them apart for vile trash. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, as a plea to Marvel, DC, any of the independents, if you have a character you don't like that at one point was beyond beloved, or at least a huge seller for you, can we just let them rest? Don't resurrect a book that hadn't been in production for a while just to diminish the legacy of what came before. To just rewrite and retcon and do whatever you can to make this character not even have the moral compass. The Punisher I read would kill you, but the Punisher I had his own set of morals and his own set of values that never would be crossed. And while all you've done is literally decided that you don't like either a political group or a military affiliation or police officers or whatever using this symbol, so we've got to do something to taint this symbol. Except I don't think it did very well, because you had 12 issues and then you brought the character back for 4 issues before it was canceled. And wait a minute, it's 2024. Frank Castle's back. Because Garth Ennis came back. And Garth Ennis is writing a book. You know what his book is set? During the Vietnam War. And we have Nick Fury in the Get Fury series. So obviously, somebody at Marvel said, hey, whoa, we can just tell old stories in new times. It doesn't have to be the modern interpretation of Frank Castle. It could be like, yeah, that was set in the 60s when he was still a soldier. He's not the Punisher in this. He's Frank Castle. He's a captain in the Marines. And I love that series. And I don't even know if I love that series because it's a good series. And I love Garth Ennis, so I know it's a good series. But I don't know if it's that or if it's literally just because that's what you do with the character. You let the character be the character. And I'm not saying that other creators have fleshed out characters from what came before and into the, universe that we've got, but you don't take almost 30 years, probably closer to 40 years of a character and completely turn them into some kind of absolute psychopathic, oh, he was a murderer as a child, he's a murderer now, he has no redeeming qualities, his kids hated him, his wife wanted to leave him, his wife did leave him. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the best part is as she was driving away at the end of Jason Aaron's comic, she's in a brand new car with a duffel bags full of money and an a pregnancy test sitting on the top of it, and she's pregnant. Okay. But he's been banished to wherever he got banished. Now, I would love to have people's thoughts on this. Comment with me. Comment that you thought it was a good story. Comment back. I would like to see people's takes on it other than me, because I'm biased. I'm old. I like what I like. I like The Dark Knight or Batman in a darker form. I'm jaded now. I don't see the good in everything. I see that there are gray areas, and I see that there are injustices, and I see that there are things that I wish could be fixed with a character like the Punisher. Now, I am not saying that that can be fixed with a character like the Punisher, but in my little brain, let me read the story that I want to read. Or don't. Just give me the fact that I can go and pick out one of the older versions in my nostalgia for the 80s or the 90s and pull open that comic, and there's my Frank. Which I guess I can do even after the Jason Aaron run. But it's in my head. It's in my brain. And I can't get that out. And that's my own fault for reading it. It's my own fault for picking up every single issue, praying that there was going to be some kind of arc. There was going to be some kind of redemption for the character that I actually grew to love. So, that's all I have on those two series. If you like this, please think about commenting. I would love to hear your comments. Also, I'm fairly small channel, but the more people that can subscribe to me, the more it helps the channel out. But I thank you for your time, and I thank you for listening to my Renegade Rant. Thanks.